All right.
Hey, hey.
And we're live.
All right. Welcome, Upright Bases and NS Design family members.
What's going on?
Hey, nice to see you, Derek. Thanks for
Good
joining
to see
us.
you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. I'm going to call out some artists here to introduce themselves. Tell us who you play with, what you're doing, and a little bit about maybe something that you're excited about this week. We'll start with Brittany Frompovich.
Hi, Corey. Thanks for having me. I am located in Northern Virginia. I'm an educator and performer. I perform with the Ashley Chevalier Band. I'm also a solo artist. I teach at a couple studios around the area. I'm also adjunct bass instructor at University of Mary Washington. So that's kind of my deal.
Thank you, Brittany. Let's go to Hutch.
I'm James Hutch Hutchinson, and I'm primarily a studio bassist. I've worked with a lot of artists all over the world, made thousands of records, and primarily have been with Bonnie Raitt for the last 7 years. Also worked in New Orleans for many a year with the Marcelluses. I worked with Ellis, and I worked with James Black and the Nevilles, and I worked with Alan Toussaint, was a dear friend, and Dr. John, and many people there. Originally came from Boston, had family in New Orleans, and had roots here in Hawaii as well, where I live now on Maui. Still have a presence in LA. Work there in the studios, and yeah, pretty happy over here during the pandemic on Maui. So it's a pretty cool thing. We don't have any of the political issues or the medical issues at this point. So it's a great inclusive place to live at this point.
Awesome.
So pretty
Good
lucky.
Yeah. Noor.
Hello, everybody. I'm Noor. I'm the co-founder of Symphonic Planet, and I'm an NS Design Liaison here in Los Angeles, California. I have been a touring bassist extraordinaire on many fronts, and I've had a chance to meet a lot of you. So this is really cool to be invited back in. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Thank you, Noor. Chance.
Hi, everyone. Chance Father, Onody, NS Design artist. Really happy to be here with everyone. I work in Los Angeles area. I've been a studio musician here for about 16 years, and now a film composer as well. And so I really like to have fun incorporating the NS instruments into those projects, and get them out to a much bigger audience, and kind of hidden, oh, those are string instruments. Yeah, they're string instruments, but they're these string instruments, and they sound awesome.
Cool. Thank you, Chance. Nick.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Villalobos, bass player. Started out classically trained, playing the upright, and then switched to the NS Designs a few years ago, playing with my group Simply Three, which I co-founded. Violin, cello, and bass. We do a lot of covers of songs and do music videos on YouTube. We also write original music. Something that I'm excited about this week is more recording, because that's all we're doing these days. So it's pretty fun. Excited to get back on the road someday. We did a lot of touring, in 2018, 2019 seems like so long ago when that was all happening. But excited to just excited to be here and to meet all you guys and glean knowledge from all of you as well.
Thank you, Nick. Derek, welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm Derek Menchan. I'm an NS Design EU6 player, and I'm a cellist and a professor, basically a solo artist, producer. I just released my second studio album, The Incredible. It's doing well, and just having fun. Something I'm excited about. Hey, man, waking up and playing groovy instrument again. You know what I mean? Anytime I can play an NS and record with my cello as well, I'm having a good day. So it's a good day.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. And
thank you, man.
Zach, you're back on. Welcome.
Sorry, guys, I got kicked off. I'm going to rechange my name here back to get it off my son's name, because my name is Zach, not Ezra. But you can see this computer is shared by all in the house. You guys have that thing too. Yes, I'm Zach Rudolph, a bass player and music director for a lot of pop artists. That's kind of my main bread and butter. And I play this beautiful thing, as do you guys, and it is awesome and wonderful and been so helpful, especially in the pop world, because we beat our stuff up moving around a lot. So that's been really, really nice. But yeah, in the meantime here at home, I've been doing music production as well and getting my feet wet with that. But I'm really a live play out type of guy, which I'm sure all of you guys are as well. So this is an interesting time to be alive, but I am honored to be on this thing with you guys. I'm looking at these faces like, dang, yes. Ned, I'm trying to grow a beard like you and you cut yours off. I see how it is. I see.
Thank you, Zach. Well, I'm just going to open up the floor, let you guys have your own conversation, try to stay out of the way. And maybe we'll start with just, what successes have you had during this most challenging year? And maybe what difficulties have you had? And whoever wants to go first, jump in.
Well, a great success this year is staying alive and not becoming ill, I think, and still functioning as a musician and being able to work with other people remotely. I think that's so important. I mean, I have done a few. I've been here on Maui primarily. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. Oh, my brother. Bakithi. Hey. Late to the party as usual.
What a nice party.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, brother.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm
Anyway.
not yet. I was trying to put things together, but
But I was in the Bay Area in January working in San Francisco, working in the studio a bit and rehearsing with Bonnie and James Taylor for a cross Canada tour. It was supposed to be 2020, running for a couple of months from one side of the country to the other. And we, of course, the pandemic started blowing up primarily in the Bay Area while we were there. We were actually watching it. It's where the cruise ship was initially isolated and quarantined in Oakland, and cases blowing up in Santa Clara. We were up in Marin at the Bob Weir studio, and it was quite hair-raising. But as the gigs started, I flew to LA a few times, was working on a show called Money Heist. I was working on a new score and theme for that. And we were over at Village on March 2nd or 3rd, 4th. And then I flew to the Bay Area again, was there for a few days. My friend Roger McNamee, who was the musician, but is known for his work in IT and finance. He was one of the founders of Facebook, actually, and had a huge falling out with Zuckerberg at one point. I ended up going to Phil Lesch's club to play with him one night. I think it was March 6th, March 7th. And as we're going on stage, he asked me to sit in. So I said, how many tunes? And he said, all of them. And I went, okay, gee, I don't know them. Threw out some charts. And walking on stage, he says, well, Hutch, this may be very prescient cat. And he says, this may be the last gig any of us do for quite some time. And I was thinking months. I'm thinking, as somebody says that, you think months. This thing at that point, early March, we really didn't know the impacts that this would have on all of our lives, especially as working musicians and wanting and needing to play in front of an audience. And I think that's when it really hit me. And of course, great time to lay it on me. You're walking on stage. He goes, well, man, this may be the last gig any of us do for quite some time. I'm like, really? Let's go have a great gig. And sure enough, knowing that it may be the last gig for a while, it really, I think, had an impact. And I started looking at things a bit differently. I got into Bonnie's rehearsals, and James was out there, and the next few days weren't the same. Everybody was getting sort of ready to shut it all down. We had our road crew there. We were set up. We were getting ready to go into full production rehearsals on a soundstage, and it never came. That Friday, our tour manager said, we're cutting everything. The gigs are starting to evaporate. The Canadian tour is postponed till September and October of 2021, which it's still on at this point. All the medical people we've spoken with think that should not be a problem in another 8 to 10 months. So we'll see what happens. But it was quite a rude awakening, I think, for all of us as musicians. And as I said, the impacts and the import to our lives, it was unrecognizable at that point, because none of us have ever gone through anything like this in our lifespan. So sorry if that was a little wordy, but it's such a heavy topic, I think.
Absolutely. It's a new era, and it's going to have long-lasting repercussions. So when you guys get back on the road, it's not going to be the same thing as it was. I don't think. I don't know.
There are already protocols in place, being put into place, as far as there will be cleaning crews backstage and in the front of house. I mean, we're doing large shows. I mean, Bonnie's shows are theater shows, basically, anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000. With Bonnie and James, we're doing ballparks, and we're doing, hockey arenas, and which is one of the reasons they had to book them at that time of the year in Canada, because it's the beginning of hockey season, and we wanted to make sure the venues are in place. But also, certain other places didn't have the case numbers that we had. So I think the authorities up there are sort of thinking that things are going to be better. I mean, and my physicians and the people that I've spoken with who are friends seem to think that once the vaccine is in place and in a high percentage of the population, this thing's going to pretty much start evaporating pretty quickly. I mean, if it's denied hosts, then it can't spread. And that'll be great for all of us, because we all like to get out there and play for people. So we'll see. We'll have to see. As you said, if they're uncharted waters, we're all sailing in uncharted seas. So interesting. I know you can relate to that, Ned. Being a sailor.
For me, this whole situation is not nearly as impactful as it is for someone who's a performing musician. I'm sitting in front of my computer right now the same way I did every day before the pandemic, more or less. And so, yes, I'm stay at home. I don't go out to dinner, or it's all kind of, and I don't see my friends as much. But still, I get to do my work the same way I always have. But I'm not a performing musician. There's a huge, and I'm curious what of all of this group, has anyone had parallel experiences to what Hutch is talking about, or maybe some differences in what's happened in terms of the work that you do and the music you make?
It's changed a lot. Well, I think some of us LA musicians, definitely, if performers, we saw a complete change. I mean, Los Angeles turned into a complete ghost town. It was the first time you could get to Santa Monica without having to go through traffic. I could actually go get a burrito I wanted on the other side of LA without any problems. But
I concur.
I'm sorry?
I said I concur.
Oh, you concur?
Absolutely.
I have to say, I mean, I don't know if there's any Angelinos here, but I think San Diego has better Mexican food. And see, that drive is a lot easier now too, because it used to take 3-4 hours to get down there. It now only takes an hour and a half. So, for me, I was in a unique situation compared to most of my colleagues, where it was just radio silence in terms of gigs, and with Symphonic Planet and the past couple of years, we've been very fortunate. We had our own studio orchestra recording for all these composers around the world, and Chance got to be part of a few of those sessions, which was really cool. It's really great because most of the orchestra I've contracted are mostly all NS players. So I'm not being unfair or anything. I just really like NS players, but they try to keep the family closer, and we were still getting contracts in, but all the studios here, there's only one studio in Los Angeles that can house a semi-quasi orchestra, because that's usually about maybe sometimes 30 to 60 players, and in a perfect day 105. But we operate usually with 13 string players, and then we stack hours and different, and the only studio available is East West that can house 20 as max. So studio wise, it also not just performance, but in contracting in the studio, there's just nothing. And however, for me, my career has transformed. Our company really just, like, in my work with Symphonic Planet, actually boomed. And I mean, I was a developing filmmaker and director, and that just exploded during pandemic. I think mainly due to the fact that because there weren't any gigs, a lot of the performers are having to rush into becoming DIY content creators, and there's a bit of a lot of a learning curve in that. And you know, for me, it was working fantastic because that was something I was already doing. And but of course, you know, it's very inconsistent here with the mayor and the governor, you know, just dealing with a lot of backlash from the local businesses wanting to be open and closing, unclosing. It's, you know, it's a very bipolar situation. But I mean, unlike, for me, it has been fantastic because a lot of my work nowadays is predominantly you know, home studio work, or you know, composing for TV and film, and music publishing. And I think that has been the new thing that's really exciting, is that while there may not be as many performing gigs, they are going to come back. I do believe that it will come back. It'll come back very feverishly. I think it's going to be a swarm. But I don't know, I could be wrong. But I think what's really cool now is that a lot of performers are spending time on becoming creators and composers. And the cat is getting out of the bag about understanding sync licensing and music publishing, and understanding that there's another income stream in which you can still maintain a career of some sort, you know. But also there's a lot of I mean, I feel like the music publishing industry is this enigma that is really kind of hard to navigate without particular guidance or whatnot. And but a lot of us are entering into it now and realizing that there's still ways to keep music happening. And I mentioned in the previous in our Tuesday stream that you know, my utilization, you know, of the NS instruments has been super advantageous, especially for me being a person who travels a lot, like a lot of you. And I wrote music for Netflix with my double bass, and they couldn't really tell the difference. You know, with a few mixing, you know, tricks here and there, they thought it was an upright bass when I wrote for Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And that was, you know, just to be able to create on the spot and enter, you know, get my foot into getting into this. And I think a lot of our colleagues are really starting to get into you know, really falling into this. And I think it is a wonderful way to survive, or at least to learn how to thrive into this world. And then when the performing comes back in, we're going to have very well-rounded professionals in all these fields. So
thank you, Noor. I know at 11 we premiered a video where Derek and Zach have a nice just kind of co-interviewing each other. And if you haven't watched it, it's very entertaining. And Zach and Derek, tell us a little bit about, I know, Zach, you were touring, and your role has changed dramatically this year.
Yeah, mine just, how do you say it? With kids and stuff in home life, mine, like you guys, like you mentioned in LA, everything just completely stopped. And so it went from being postponed and maybe then in fall, then to maybe December, and then interestingly, they just stopped talking about it. I don't know how it is for sure. Well, you said, James said that they're still looking at shows preset in the future, which is cool. But for us, it was like, oh, push it back, push it back, push it back. And then I think people just stopped wanting to talk about it because they didn't want to have to deal with the letdown of it not being there again. So it's just completely closed off. In fact, there's venues, there's classic jazz venues. I think the Blue Whale in LA is one of them that just recently had to close down. A lot of spots, which is unfortunate. But I think my situation is, the uniqueness of my situation is just being home with kids. Went from being in and out, kind of firefighter style life, to just straight home was pretty abrupt. And I love my family and my kids are awesome, but it was brutal, in fact, in the creativity genre, because I wasn't as set up and ready to be the mobile guy like some of you guys possibly had already done. So it took some months of settling and figuring it out mentally, which is still, I think, a fight for some. Like James was saying, with emotional well-being and all of that for a lot of us. Yeah, so that was part of it. But the benefit, honestly, for me has honestly just been the family time. I'd been touring out of the house for the last like 10 years. So I've been trying to take this blessing and just, absorb it as best as possible. But some of the things Symphonic Planet, what's your real stinking name?
Noor. My name is Noor.
That's right. We've met before. Good to see you, man. Some of the things that Noor says are really interesting to me and stuff that I'm just now trying to dig into myself. Like he said, but I agree. I think musicians are going to have to be better, which is going to be better for the whole world and better for the public in general.
No doubt.
The family time has been absolutely unbelievable and could never change that. That's been my highlight, honestly.
Yeah, and it's great for I don't mean to cut anybody off. I'm sorry.
Just that it's the silver lining. You have to look for that silver lining in the cloud.
Yeah.
So
yeah. In my case, I would hesitate to say that the pandemic worked to my favor, because that's ridiculous to say it's a pandemic. People are dying. It's a very serious thing. But by nature, I'm a philosophy doctoral candidate. And so I'm sort of a ruminator. I sit home and think. So that was something I did. I had already decided as a professor, because I take care of my 91-year-old mom who lives with me, wonderful lady. I'm at home with her. And what worked in my favor is that, as I was mentioning in the little thing that I did with this wonderful thing I did with Zach, that I, a few years back, made a decision to move toward being a producer. I was a guy who did my recital debut in classical music when I was like 13. And I've been, playing concerti and sonatas and stuff all over since then. And the cello rep it's not small, but the stuff that I specialize in is pretty narrow, somewhat. And so what happened for me during the pandemic, I was able to concentrate a lot more on my producing chops and my arranging chops. And the funny thing is, when my friends started doing the a cappella videos where they would, harmonize with themselves and whatnot, I looked at that and I was like, oh man, if I ever get turned loose in that, I'm going to shut it down, because I've got like thousands of prearranged tunes up in my head that I could like do in 2 minutes. And I did that. And so a year before the pandemic, I would scat sing Bach concerti. I would do Tchaikovsky where I'd scat it. I was doing all this stuff. And so then a year later, I had like 150 videos, and people are like, this guy's kind of interesting. And they're all tongue in cheek. They're all silly, because let's face it, it's me times 10. But during the pandemic, people really started paying attention to what I was doing and sort of took notice of the fact that I jumped from Eric Clapton to Utopia to Bach to Sting in like 3 days. And literally these orchestrations, as I was talking with Zach, I'd get in the shower and I'd be like, yeah, I think I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to do, Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer or whatever. And I'd get out and I'd get my camera and my little earbuds, and about 10 minutes later, you had the whole tune. And so people are like sitting back going, oh, what is he going to do now? And I don't even know what I'm going to do.
I was one of those people, I think, actually.
Oh, really? Well, thank
Maybe,
you, man.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, what really happened that was serious is I was finishing up my second album. My second album, and I had a plane ticket to go out to Houston with my amazing engineer. My mastering guy is a guy who lived with Zappa and recorded him for a while and recorded everybody, Talking Heads, B-52s, BB King, Streisand, all these cats. And I was so bummed when I couldn't go back out and finish like literally 65% of my album. And I had to start emailing files back and forth. And when I wasn't working with my producer, I'd go in my studio and I'd do these a cappella videos really to keep me alive. Because as Zach said, emotional well-being and psychological hygiene is very important. And navigating this pandemic and isolation is pretty tough. And you know, what I wanted to say is when I finished my album, and I'm working on some stuff now, my arranging chops shot through the roof. Like, I'm able to sit down now. I'm able to literally sit down, listen to an Ellington tune, and meditate for about 10 minutes. Go into the studio and pull that bad boy out in like,
Wow.
a half a day. And I wasn't able to. I'm talking about really sensitive, subtle arrangements. And so that was a benefit for me. The drag, there's a drag. Again, I'm a cellist too. So when I get the call, hey, Derek, can you play the cello part to the Beethoven Opus 59 number 2 quartet? Yeah, but the problem is it's a quartet. We're all supposed to be in the same room.
Right.
So all of a sudden what happens is not only that it's Beethoven, it's the hardest music in the world to play. I've got to do it solo. And I'm sitting here hating myself because I'm messing up stuff because Beethoven was a god. He has you do stuff that can't be done except in your mind. And you're having to, record yourself and do like 13 or 14 takes and then mail it in. Hopefully you haven't tanked your reputation by missing these notes. And none of us do. People are very forgiving with virtual and Zoom recordings, but that's been the drag that I've had to put together really intense and tough pieces, chamber music in a solo way, but we all have to do it. So I guess it all works out in the end, but I'm really taken with the benefit that came. It really made my arranging chops flourish. You know what I mean? And that was my experience.
We're all here now, so we wouldn't be here together.
That's right.
It's a bizarre kind of give and take, but let's take whatever.
Yeah. You got to survive, right? We were taught as we were coming up, you do as many things as you can well so you can get a check, right? I mean, it's odd for me coming up in the quote unquote classical world. They don't really tell you, hey, go ahead and try to shed on some Mingus. So just in case these gigs dry up, you can go do, they don't tell you that, but I grew up playing all that stuff.
Well,
so it works out.
And that's something I stressed. I had a classical background when I was a child in Boston. I studied with John Barvicki, who was the principal bassist with the BSO. Kozeletsky's student, basically. He played his bass for years, which now I think Gary Carr owns. And, so that was initially my background. And I've always stressed, as Noor knows, diversity in your tastes and with the music that you listen to. And as Charles Neville said to me when we were roommates when I was a teenager, he said, all the same notes, man. Back when I was a kid in the 1920s and 30s, there weren't music critics created genres in the 40s and 50s.
Right.
We basically did and Dave Bartholomew and all the cats that I really respected and knew. I mean, a lot of the New Orleans guys, especially, I think, and who emigrated to New York and Chicago and Memphis, they didn't look at difference. They didn't look at color. They didn't look at, different types of music, and it was really all about it being music and what your taste reflected and what were you exposed to that you could utilize in these different forms. And that's served me really well over the last just about 60 years. So it's and I'm still flourishing, and that's precious. I think I'm working now more than ever. I mean, we had those days in the 80s and 90s where I would do 2 or 3 sessions, even up until, as an engineer, my friend Ed Che'ree passed away last year. He did so many great records, and I said, man, I was at the Grammys, and I was with Phil Ramone and Ed and Al Schmidt and some great engineers, and I said, man, I was doing 20 records a year like 10 years ago. And Eddie looks at me and he goes, Hutch, that was 5 years ago. And it was sort of a drastic change, I think, for a lot of us who worked sessions and were creative in that sense when streaming happened. But now we're at a whole another level of change. Now everything's shut down. Now you can't go into the studio and work. You're prohibited physically from going to doing gigs. And I think this has really affected a lot of my friends who work in clubs and work in jazz clubs and work the Blue Notes around the world. And for me, I have somewhat of a residual stream at this point. So, I mean, I also took my union pension early, which everybody said, don't do it, let it accrue. And I'm going, no, man, this might come in handy. I did that last year. So it was like, really perfect timing.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of my friends who work in clubs, who work events, a lot of musicians over here. And by the way, the NS is a really popular instrument with the Hawaiian musician population. I mean, they were always double bass players. They're always upright players over here. And I think because of the climate, it's not as affected. I'd hate to bring a couple of my precious double basses over here. And the NS really fits the bill because it's indestructible, really. I mean, Ned, you really did us a great service. We can take it on the road, because with Bonnie, I mean, it's really
a little more care. I mean, I wouldn't assume that it's indestructible.
What's that?
I'd say you might want treat it with a little more care. It's actually not indestructible.
But it works really well in the golfing range.
We're speaking about climate.
Zach destroyed his first NS bass.
Did he really? What band were you with at the time? Yes.
No, I was just playing at a church for a Christmas event. It was like a Christmas musical thing, but the stage was about 4 feet high, and then it was pitch dark, black, and they didn't have lights, and they had us come up on stage, just like a show starts in the dark, and somebody just bumped it, and it fell the 4 feet off the thing and on the head, and just kind of cracked the neck
my God.
right up. It was crazy.
Oh, that's terrible. Oh man, that's a horrible story. Yeesh.
Well,
hey Bakithi, where's your coffee?
I just woke up. I'll make my coffee there.
You just woke up, man. It's like, it's not even, it's barely 7 a.m. here. So.
Oh man.
I went to bed very late.
Wow.
And all of that stuff. And then, of course, I had a big dinner with my daughter, who's turning 25 today. So it's a big birthday party.
Oh.
Okay, congratulations.
Now that means I can start paying her bills.
Life is more complicated than that. It just finished 25. I mean, I hate to tell you, but it might be.
I was counting. I said, "Wow, 25." I remember when I was 25, I was already on the road making some money and take care of my family, my mother, which is I still do, But this pandemic, it's been very, very a disaster and just brutal to a lot of people, and it's still going. Like I was just watching the CNN talking about South Africa, how this thing is affecting people in South Africa, because most people in South Africa, they don't have the resources that we have. You can sit in front of the TV, and when they tell you, please don't go out, but it's a struggle in Africa because people, they have to eat, and some people have little kids.
Right.
The government has no plan, to help these people. So it's a disaster, and I worry about my family. I get calls 3 o'clock in the morning, all kinds of stuff. But it's life, There's nothing we can do about it until, whatever happens, we get saved. But during the pandemic time, after we finished the final tour with the Paul, and I had to focus on my music, because during the tour I was writing stuff and, putting tracks here and there. But now when I came home and I said, man, it's good to be home every day, wake up my bedroom and know my bathroom, and, I miss the crowd. But really, that gave me a lot of time to be home and try to know my family, who my family are, because most of the time I'm like traveling, trying to pay the college bills, so I just complete my CD, which is gonna come out when the pandemic is over, because I hate to put it out and then I can't play it.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter, I got 2 daughters, one who's turning 25 today, and then the little one, she just moved to Virginia after she graduated from college. She got a diploma to go to be a teacher. But then also too, it was a disaster. I had to explain to her, like, hey, look, I don't know anything about the pandemic, but this is how life nonsense. You have to be ready for anything.
Right.
In school, there's no traditional teaching with a bunch of kids because of this pandemic. So you're gonna do the visual thing or anything I can help to set you up or whatever. Let me know. But just this is life, you know. I mean, I grew up in South Africa where things were very difficult, but I really never focused on the government because I knew that there was problem with these folks and they really don't understand people. They just want to do what they do for them. So my thing, I just focused on the instrument and I ran away from home and spent time, in Zululand for 16 months. My mother didn't know where I was. When I came back home, she says, "You're not my son. My son is dead." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
That's a rough one. That's rough. Yeah.
Like chicken pox and no, 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 no. My son is gone because I said I am your son, and some other family members they tell my mother, yes, he is your son. Just
Wow.
feeling well.
Wow.
But I did a sacrifice for the music. I didn't care what happens. And then after I came back from Zululand for 16 months, then I go to Zimbabwe, join the band, go to Zimbabwe, and then when we get to Zimbabwe, it was a disaster. We got kicked out at the gig where we were hired. So I just stayed in Zimbabwe to learn the African music because in South Africa it was more like jazz and Western music. But in Zimbabwe it was like typical African music, and I said, I'm staying here. I'm gonna learn this. And then when I go home, everything was amazing. I got a gig with Paul, and I didn't even know who Paul was, but he gave me an opportunity, and I took chances. And I mean, I've never been on the plane. I never had any passport or any document. So I had to find that so I can fly to America to come here to work with Paul. And for 35 years, he's been just an amazing education for me. It's been called every country that I play, and it's been really amazing.
Hey, Bakithi, did you work with Tuku in when you were in Zimbabwe?
I live on Tukuzi.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
play with Jetro Chacha. I play with
Oh yeah.
And yeah, man.
Yeah, we lost Oliver last year. Oh, we lost Tuku last year.
The language, sometimes I get really paranoid when they're talking to Zimbabwean because I don't understand. Then I'm thinking, wow, what are they talking about? Cooking me or something, which song are you talking about? They're like, oh no, so we don't understand the language. But it was all good. Then I had to learn Shauna and
oh yeah.
to death because I'm away from home, and when you're in Africa, it is chaotic. It's chaotic. You just never know. So it was very challenging, but that helped me and also find my voice in an instrument. And I didn't even have a bass because when you join the band, the manager of the band has the instrument. Sometimes even the strings they're like far away from the fretboard, but you just gotta suck it up and even though in work. So I took those chances, and then I ended up in Paul, and we just finished the last final tour, and we were supposed to go out also to for the Asia and Australia to finish up with Paul, but because of the pandemic, now I'm home practicing Ernest design like crazy, and just to get the chops for the electric bass because really I'm not a good upright bass.
Oh, come on.
You have pretty good, man.
I think you've done pretty well. Bakithi, can you turn up your mic at all? Your volume?
How about now?
Ah, much better.
Yeah, much better.
Paul's been on him about volume levels for years, so now it's affected him generally in his life. I think
I remember, I had the in-ears. I just got the in-ears, so I was like really excited, but I forgot that the bass amp was loud. So then I'm smiling, and then Paul turned around and says, "Shh."
I've witnessed this. I have to verify this. We toured extensively in the last number of years with Bakithi and Paul, and And my friend Pino years ago had the same similar problem when he was in that organization, I think. So,
but I had to learn. I had to learn playing with Paul, you know, because he's a storyteller. He sings lyrics and everything. And then the stage, we have like, you know, 15 people on stage, and, you know, microphones are like, you know, they pick up anything, everything. So, you know, so I had to really learn and keep my bass very soft. And I had a guy from Cameroon, a guitar player, he used to tell my friend, turn this thing up, man. And I said, no, I can't. You know, Paul, he says, you lost it. You lost it. Now you don't sound like an African. But you know, it was crazy. It was hard to like really balance it because he wants my bass to be loud, and you know, and then the rest of the band. I said, please ask the monitor guy to you know, bring anything. But I'm here for Paul. If Paul says don't play, I don't play. Like most of the time, there's one song that he told me not to play and play like 2 bars before the end of the song. So I'm holding the bass just standing there. Counting the 2 bars, but it's a gig. You have to respect that. And I mean, Paul, he gave me an education that I didn't think existed, and he showed me the world that I didn't think existed. I mean, he's amazing. He's
now
amazing.
he and Edie are hiding out not far from us, actually, over here. So I played on a track of Edie's the other day, actually. So they're good people.
They're amazing. And when we played in Hawaii, and I was like, wow, this is it, you know? And so I was going to call Paul and say, Paul, hey, if you need a landscaper guy or, you know, some handyman, I'll take that job, you know? But for me, it's just to work on my record now and finish it, and then go to the music mentors and work with the young kids. Like, you know, before the pandemic, also too, I was working with a bunch of kids, different schools here in Pennsylvania. Just to teach them how to practice, how to listen to their instruments, how to get a nice tone. Don't play if your sound is not right. You know, it's just like that every day, and just try to help them. But we didn't get a chance to perform April because of the pandemic. So, but and then we did the Zooming thing, which it was very hard to. Sometimes they play for me, and I'm like, I don't understand because the quality of, you know, the Zooming is so hard to hear, but. You know, I just wanted to do something, but this problem, it needs a lot of prayers. You know, I think that's the only thing that can solve. Prayers, pray for the country, what's going on, and pray for everything, and pray for, you know, lost people and the people who are still alive. You know, every day try to make sense because it's something that I've never imagined. You know, I mean, I grew up in South Africa. You know, every day you got to find something because if you don't have, you know, who knows when you're going to get bread or milk or something, you know. But, yeah. But having Anna's design changed my game, especially when I was playing with Paul and he needed the bass, upright bass for one of the songs that he recorded. So Anna's gave me the upright, and that changed my game. That changed really beautiful. A lot of people because you know, it's
in anybody's world, are people gigging? Like I know in LA, because I still have, you know, I work in LA the reason I'm here this is the longest I've ever spent here. I think my wife's becoming a little disillusioned, but it's, you know, I primarily work out of Los Angeles, and I know LA's shut down. But like Bakithi or anyone else, Derek, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Central Florida. I'm between Tampa and Orlando.
So are there gigs in like Bakithi? Are you still in Pennsylvania near Bethlehem there?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So are there gigs there? I remember when we were there with Bonnie and James, we stayed in the Hotel Bethlehem, and I knew you were playing like there regularly and some other places. And I know I have friends in Austin who were playing a bit. You know, there's some people are doing gigs, and I don't know what markets they're available in, or Brittany, where like you're out there in Virginia or somewhere. So
some of the smaller venues are doing stuff. I know in the summer it's a lot easier. We go outside. We had a lot of beach gigs this summer, which was for me fantastic. I just love that kind of setting.
Mhm.
A lot of beachside gigs, outdoor gigs, winery gigs, outdoor stages at tap houses. Restaurants are setting up outdoor stages under tents. We did a drive-in gig at a place called Crescendo Studios in Northern Virginia, and they had us on an indoor stage, which was usually a concert room. It has about 200 people in it. And then they had another opening act outside in the parking lot under an Easy Up, a solo artist. And it was literally drive-in, like you came in your car, and the whole parking lot was populated with cars. When they applauded, they flashed their headlights. And we could see them they had a great video and audio set up. Actually just released an album with tracks from that whole concert, a live album. It's over on our Bandcamp. But basically we had a screen where we could see the parking lot, and they could hear us. They just tuned in their car radios to the station we were broadcasting on, and they had a big screen on the side of the building outside. It's there. I think it's there right now more for local and smaller acts than the big acts, which is unfortunate, but it is still there. That's where I kind of feel bad hearing these stories. It's a lot easier for me to gig right now than a lot of these larger acts, sadly.
Yeah. Here, Florida, there's the bars, a few local bars are hiring. I have a friend who was on my first album, Gary Williams, who and that's kind of mostly his livelihood. So he's still gigging. I've got a buddy who's a bassist, and he went out to Vero and did a bunch of gigs. So they're still happening, but not nearly, thriving as much as they used to. But little, as she said, I would agree, smaller things are happening. Nothing really large right now.
It's funny because over here, in Hawaii, for instance, like pretty much everything's a beach gig. And there's a lot of great musicians here. I mean, the Hawaiian Cats, some of the better jazz musicians I've played with anywhere, and
Wow.
they used to go out and tour back in the 30s. Like Ellington's bassist. There's a singer here, a Hawaiian traditional singer. Her name's Sister Robbie. They call her Sister Robbie, but Robbie Kahakalau. And
Okay.
I was talking to her once, and decades ago, and she said, "Oh, my father was a bass player." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, and he worked out of Boston." And I said, "Really?" And he's the Hawaiian Cat. But back then, of course, transitioning, I mean, African American to whatever, things weren't as open. So you wanted a gig, in New Orleans, they called it passe blanc if you were passing for white.
Yeah.
Over here, her father moved to the Northeast, a Hawaiian guy, because he wanted to play jazz. Now, he was a PI, he's a Pacific Islander, but he was black and ended up playing with Count Basie and Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald for years. And
Okay.
I said, "Who was your father?" She said, "Oh, he lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts." I said, "That's where I'm from." She said his name was Bob Carter. And I said, "Your father was Bob Carter?" A well-known bass player in the 30s and 40s, and
Okay.
but over here, I think a lot of the people do events. They do corporates, they do weddings. They aren't happening. Nobody's flying. I mean, there are tourists coming now, but my friends are really hurt by this in Boston, in Louisiana, and over here are the cats who work the clubs on a regular basis. Because I think although there are gigs at that level, I think that they're hard to depend on. Nobody knows, like you were saying earlier, Noor, I believe, about, and Zach, I mean, about things changing dramatically at a rapid pace, depending on case numbers or whatever. You may have a gig, but it may not be there by the time the gig comes around.
Right.
Maybe booking stuff, but things are so transitional.
Right away.
Changing.
It's like Burning Man. You show up for hot metal on the schedule, but no one might actually show up. So
yeah, but it's encouraging that people are trying to do things. There's a place here called the Maui Arts and Cultural Center, and a friend of mine is the director, and it's a great venue. They have multiple venues. Bakithi's played there, I think, and they have a large outdoor venue that can accommodate 6,000 to 9,000, and they have a 1,200 seat theater, and then they'll have smaller venues throughout 250 seats, 400 seats.
Yeah.
And they book a lot of sort of world music and jazz and the Honolulu Symphony, but you'll find my friend Art at the beginning of the pandemic, he was sort of flipping out. And my wife saw an article in a European paper about them starting to do these drive-in concerts, as Brittany was talking about. And, that started to come about. When I first brought it up to Art in May, he was like, I don't know, man, it's not going to work for us. Well, they were having them by October, November, and they still are. And they're a public arts organization. I mean, they have outreach and dance and music and basically all of the arts. And so they have a trust, and they're somewhat funded, but they still need a budget, a working budget. So, I mean, although they're not bringing in a ton of funds, they're still able to stay alive. Like you were saying, the Blue Whale closed. I mean, a lot of smaller venues are going to be closing. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, people can only wait so long. But I think once this is over, a lot of those venues are going to be replaced by others. And they may be, we're talking about musicianship, and the quality may be better venues, because our technology has also been advancing at this time. And I think things could be looking up in the next year and a half. I don't think there's no definitive timeline, but as I was saying, I really feel bad for the people who need to go out and play 5 nights a week or 6 nights. They're the people who, like a lot of us, have. If you work in film, you score. You've been on the road for a while. You have some, and you played on a lot of records. You have some kind of residual flow. You have something coming in. And I think the cats who really depended on going out and working, as I was saying here, a lot of my friends, the Hawaiian guys, use NS basses on the gig because they're indestructible. And but the thing is,
They're not indestructible.
From the horse's mouth. And but
When you talk about a year and a half, Hutch, are you serious? It's going to take a year and a half from now?
Well, no, I think from the beginning of the pandemic, I think that's why, I think Zach was saying about, people rebooking things, saying, oh, we'll be going out. Initially, I think a lot of our gigs with Bonnie or James, which is really my bread and butter on the road. Otherwise, it's all studio stuff. I mean, they booked it for November. And sadly enough, we were November of 2020. Sadly enough, we were also supposed to headline John Prine's festival, which he did annually in the Dominican Republic. Now, of course, John, one of our great singer-songwriters, passed away from COVID. I mean, he was a friend for 40 years. I mean, I've lost 5 friends to this disease, and one through suicide, who was a producer who I worked with. I think a lot of people just can't handle the stress. I've lost 2 people I know to suicide during the pandemic, which a lot of people don't talk about. I mean, and these were people who needed to be social, and I think being social helped them get through their demons. And that's why initially in a couple of interviews I talked about, we as creative personalities, you need to create those opportunities for you to create. You need to be able to be entrepreneurial, not necessarily in a financial sense, but to help our mental state maintain a certain freshness and a certain creative perspective on your life. Because music is more than just a profession. It's something that's inherent in all of us. And I think we need it. We need to be able to create. It subdues the demons that maybe some of us have, because a lot of us have dark sides. We don't always show them. But I remember in my teens when I was playing and I was going through that angst, and I was transitioning from playing classical music to bluegrass to jazz and R&B. I mean, I had some demons, and I think music got me through. I mean, that was a big part of my life. I mean, it was the late 60s. I mean, Dr. King had been shot, Malcolm X had been shot, Bobby Kennedy. I mean, that was the core of my life. My mother took me to see Dr. King speak. I mean, they were very big times. I mean, they were like now. I mean, our country politically and socially was just as divided. and I think music helped get me through all of that in a big way. I mean,
that's a really important thing, Hutch, of the suicide awareness and checking in on friends and family.
Yeah,
right.
And I think for some of us, it has brought our communities together and our families together to set up those support systems a little bit more than we might have had before.
I found myself reaching out. I have a dear friend. Some of you may be familiar with his work, and his name's Danny Thompson, and he's a jazz bassist. He's a Mingus freak, but he's known for his work with Pentangle and Richard Thompson, and he's an English player. And I met him. He was playing at Tufts University when I must have been when I was 14, and I went to this gig, and he really blew my mind because he was playing English folk music in like Mingus, you know what I mean? He was stretching it, man. I was like, and his tone, and it was growly, and there's a certain tone I try to achieve every now and then. And I have an old King upright, and you get this sort of growl out of it. It's like the American standard. It's a super long scale. It's 44.5 inches, so then every note is super expressive. And he just had that in everything he did. But he's in his 80s, and he still lives to play and to go on the road. So he was one of the first cats I got a hold of. And he's in the UK. And the UK got hit hard. And I thought, gee, I wonder how Danny is, man. And I called a mutual friend who used to work for EMI in Australia, and he sort of hooked us up. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, and he wasn't on social media anymore. I got concerned. It was like, man, how's he doing? And he's a big influence on me when I was a young player. And he's one of the funniest human beings on the planet. And as soon as I got a hold of him and he started telling me jokes, I knew he was going to be okay. But it was good. I was worried. I worry about friends at this point.
Yeah.
So, tracking down a lot of people, man. I go, I don't know how this is happening, But anyway.
I can vouch for that for NS Design and Corey and Ned and all the crew here being there for me. I had a horrible medical scare this past year.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear, Chance.
Thank you. And it's as people can see who have seen me before, I've shrunk quite a bit, and that was from that. And so this past year, I've really had to pull away from social media and all that kind of stuff just to focus on whatever jobs that I could get to pay for what I was going through. Oh, and I've been very blessed that I was able to continue doing that in music, particularly through TV and film composition
with us today.
And then remote recording. So I'm very happy. But like what Corey was saying about the community-wise of it bringing together, like Corey calling and checking in on me, and like I was pretty hesitant for a while because I wasn't really understanding what was going on before I could open up and being like, okay, hey, now I'm starting to get better. Like, all right, so this is what's going on with me. But yeah, it's so important to, as you guys are saying, to reach out and talk to people and check up on them. So like, I feel like I got a great family here with NS. Like, you guys are all amazing.
Hey, did you have a big beard before at one point?
I had a beard, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It works without the beard.
Thank you. Beard
First, I thought I noticed there was a difference in your physical appearance, and I'm going, is it the beard? Is it the
The beard and about 60 pounds.
Yeah, well, that's the 60 pounds can be good, but
oh yeah, no, I'm taking it and using it for the better part of being healthier.
I actually had a medical scare myself this year, which
sorry to hear that.
Funny. I said to my wife, I said, oh great, we got the pandemic, we got no gigs. I've set up a studio here. I had a little studio in LA, and my wife was super proud. Also, I think it got me out of her hair a little bit that I set up a place here on Maui, which I talked to Corey about because I got this bass and I need strings and a bow, and and you guys were so great in helping me out because they've all been put to good use. But I also lost at first I thought I had COVID. So I thought, oh, great. I'm here isolated in the middle of nowhere on an island in the middle of the Pacific. And they tested me, and it wasn't COVID, but it was another type of virus. And I lost about 23 pounds. And I said, man, I got to keep this off. I mean, this is like, I came back about 7 or 8, but it was sort of a boon to me maintaining. I've always been somewhat health conscious and diet and tried to be with exercise, but it's it was a rude awakening. I thought, gee, on top of everything else, now I have to deal like yourself with this health problem. I mean, and
Yeah.
it was sort of overwhelming. I mean,
That's the way
and
to do it, though. Just like as you said, take it, and like it was tough going through it, but then you take it and you kind of run with it as like, all right, you're gonna keep the weight down and try and keep healthy. At least that's what I'm gonna do for myself too. Is just like I'm gonna take what happened and run with it.
yeah,
It was
that's a
great
good
to hear
thing.
your voice, Chance. Every few weeks, you seemed more optimistic and more
Thank
happier
you so much,
and
Corey.
stronger. So it was good to hear that. Nick, we haven't heard from you at all, and I know, like many
Nick.
of our artists here, a lot of has gone into production. And I know, Hutch, you're talking about the studios you set up. I know Zach has been diving more into production. I know Noor's kept his job with production, but I know Simply 3 has created some amazing videos this year. And if you guys don't know it, Simply 3 made this video about a year and a half ago of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. And Nick is actually playing an NS bass on top of a AMC Gremlin from the movie. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Sure, this is all true. But yeah, I
Where do you
mean,
find the grab?
where did I find it? I actually found it. I found it online in Maine.
Really?
Corey.
Yeah. And,
Where are you in LA or you're in Maine? Are you?
I'm in Arizona.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And yeah, we found it there, and it was like the only one we could afford, and it was pretty broken down, so we had it shipped out to us, and we had some guys here that are car savvy that were able to fix it. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I think this new sort of lifestyle has shown me is that it really just like when it comes down to everything, when it comes down to it, you just have to be good in the mind, really, because like if you're not good here, you're not going to be able to do anything.
That's right. That's right.
And,
Very true.
and if you have to rely on yourself, are you able to do it? Like that's really what it came down to this year. It's like nobody else is being able to help anybody else out. So can you do it on your own?
That's right.
Luckily for us at Simply 3, we've kind of done stuff on our own since the beginning. So it was kind of nothing new to us, kind of like what some other people have said. Like, Ned, your life hasn't changed that much because of the pandemic. You're still able to do your work. Luckily for us, we were able to do, half of what we usually did. Obviously nobody's touring and doing that stuff, which is the reason why I do what I do, because I love to be on stage and to play for people, as all of you do. But I mean, it's been said a bunch on this event that as a musician today, you got to be multifaceted. You got to be able to depend on yourself and basically do everything. And I think everyone was able to realize that is the case this year. And some people figured it out quicker than others, but I think in the end, it's going to create, like Zach was saying, a lot of very well-rounded musicians that are very knowledgeable about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Because in this world of multimedia, you got to know your video stuff. You got to know how to communicate with people that know video stuff. You got to be able to communicate with people who know how to record, all the vocabulary and stuff. It's just going to make your life a lot easier to be able to be a successful musician. Luckily for us, we have a good online presence, so that didn't go away at all, which was nice. And we saw some improvement as well because everyone's home and not doing anything.
And you make some really fun videos, so thank you for those.
Making videos is fun. It's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation. I wonder if I think Chance is all ready to set up and play here. Can he maybe take us out with 30 seconds of some crazy upright bass finger flying madness?
All right.
Is that the new NS Design wind controller, Bakithi?
Wait, what's he got?
I'm very proud of that one, yes.
What?
What is that? That doesn't look
That's everything
in his
like
hand.
that.
Is that coming through?
Yes.
Turn up, Chance.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Thank you. dude.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you guys. It was just fun to be able to
Beautiful.
get back on the instrument and have some fun in front, make some
That's
stuff.
beautiful.
Is that an Omni or full size?
That's a full size.
It is. Okay, cool.
The Omnis are pretty fun. Like I've been having a little fun testing those out, and I'll be with you guys later on with the Omni stuff as well.
They're
But
great.
I just
yeah.
love these instruments. It's like how you get so many different sounds out of it, like that cool magnetic sound to really quick, fast. I can hear everything that plays through.
Nice.
Like I just love this instrument, and it plays those high notes to low instrument. Or like just full piezo that. It's just such a versatile instrument to me that I just love being able to move around on it and have some fun. So
Nice.
Thank you guys so much for having me be able to put it up. I know Corey said like just have the instrument ready just in case. I was like, sure, I love it. It's fun.
That's great.
He's still working on Temptation Eyes, Corey. Don't worry.
Oh god, yeah. I think we all.
I don't understand why no bass player can play Temptation Eyes correctly. Well, thank you all. This has been really wonderful. Really appreciate you all showing up, especially Hutch.
Thank you.
I know it was 5:30 when you signed on. That's got to be rough.
AM. Yes.
Yeah, it is rough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Terrific.
Good to see everybody.
Hey, and
Awesome to see everyone.
oops. And Ned and Bakithi, our illustrious South African drummer, Ricky Fattar, says to say hello. He wanted me to pass along his regards. He texted me actually during our conversation, and I told him to tune in if he could. But he's a drummer, so I'm not sure if he did.
All right. Well, peace out. Everyone take care of themselves. Stay safe and healthy. And here's to getting a gig soon.